Live from the studio at the Northwest Florida School of Biblical Studies, this is Have a Bible Question, where you are part of the program. Now, let's go to the Bible for answers to your Bible questions.
Right, we got you on here to talk some Bible and some things. Troy, you said there was a question that came in.
Yes, Brother Jeff, you mentioned your background with engineering, and you mentioned something. What'd you call it? Thermal? Was it thermodynamics, or what was the thing that the emphasis?
You don't really go these days and get a degree in thermodynamics. Usually, what you're going to do, if you want to have an emphasis in thermodynamics, you're going to get a mechanical engineering degree, but you're going to make your primary area of study the thermal sciences, and so that's what my master's was. It was heavily involved with thermodynamic side of things.
So the question that I had that come in was regarding that somebody had read something somewhere about how thermodynamics specifically shows that the world itself is in a decay or an atrophy or something like that, which is the opposite of evolution. Instead of the world and life growing, everything is kind of decaying. Would you elaborate on that or explain that better for the person?
Yeah, and incidentally, so we'll give a kind of a Cliff Notes version of that topic, but I go into that very thoroughly in my book, Science versus Evolution. Got a lot of, including the responses that the evolutionists give to our rationale on this. But the route that I usually take with the laws of thermodynamics is not really just Earth-centered, it's more universe-centered. And so if you apply the first law of thermodynamics indicates that in any kind of a set system that you have, there's no matter and energy that is coming into existence on its own. The amount of energy within that system is going to remain constant unless you open up the system and put stuff in there. So if you apply that to the universe as a whole, then the first law of thermodynamics indicates that the universe could not have created itself without violating that law. The second law of thermodynamics indicates that the universe is running down, where it's, like you said, atrophying, where the technical explanation is that we're running out of usable energy. Everything is breaking down. We're moving towards a state of what we call heat death, which means that the universe couldn't be infinitely old, or we should already be at a state of heat death. So the universe couldn't have created itself. First law of thermodynamics. Universe couldn't be eternal. Second law of thermodynamics. Therefore, the only option is that there's something outside of the universe that put the universe here, a creator of some sort. Now, sometimes people will apply that concept to just the Earth and to try to apply it to biological evolution, which you can't, but you're going to have to be a little more careful with how you do that. So keep in mind that if you have a system, like in this case, the Earth, where there can be usable energy coming in from outside of the system, then that usable energy can actually counter entropy on a local level. So you could think about it like if you go into a room and clean it, then you can counter entropy on a local level. And so usually in response to the idea of the Earth, using the second law of thermodynamics against evolution on the Earth, usually the evolutionists will say, well, the Earth's not a closed system. You've got useful energy coming in from outside of the Earth that could counter entropy on the Earth and allow for evolution to happen, which I deal with that more thoroughly in my book.
That's interesting.
But the long and short of it is that that's a terrible response to that argument, because in order for that to be the case, then entropy over the entire Earth would have to be being countered right now, day in and day out. You'd have to have the second law of thermodynamics being revoked in order for evolution to happen. And yet we know that's not what's happening on an Earth-wide scale. We still have entropy growing up at every level, including genetically. We have genetic entropy going on,
Huh.
and can even predict when the mutation accumulation in our genome will grow to an extent to where it'll ultimately lead to the extinction of species. Even that can even be predicted. So all species are tumbling down this mountainside, this avalanche of genetic entropy. And so, regardless of whatever positive, useful energy could be coming into the earth from outside of the earth, it's not countering evolution or countering entropy, even at a genetic level. So,
Wow.
the argument still holds. But my point is just that we got to be careful how we word that particular argument, or you will get yourself into a scrape. They'll come at you with that sunlight.
That's when you
So-
call Jeff Miller. They'll go.
Yeah.
And now you mentioned science versus evolution. That is in the AP store. You can get 1095. I want to point this out. Their mission is to make this material available. A lot of the books that you get there normally would sell $20 plus, but they're just trying to get this material out. And I think, did you discuss this particular issue when you did the series with World Video Bible School?
Okay, you're probably talking about. I did my science versus evolution seminar. I went down there and recorded that.
Okay, yeah.
And yes, I deal with thermodynamics. I don't necessarily get into some of the nitty gritty of what I just talked about. That's dealt with in my book. But this down there at World Video Bible School, I think I had to squeeze it all into 4.5 to 5 hours. And when I do my weekend seminar, it's usually more like 9 hours. So it's a lot of material to try to cram into those lessons. And so I might not have dealt with genetic entropy on a local level there, but again, I do deal with that in my book.
I got
In
you.
fact, in my book, I deal with every argument I've ever heard in response to the laws of science whenever we use the law of biogenesis and thermodynamics and probability and genetics and causality to make our case for the existence of God. The atheists don't take that sitting down. They've got responses to about every argument that we make. So the second half of my book deals with responding to all their arguments, and ultimately we're left with the truth, where the evidence actually points. I haven't seen anybody be able to deal with those arguments. And ultimately, if you're going to continue to be a naturalist, after you hear those arguments, you're going to be doing so not based on the evidence. You're going to have to be doing it as a blind faith. So, for example, incidentally, I'll just give you one example. If you apply thermodynamics to the universe, as I was talking about, the thermodynamics laws indicate there's got to be something outside of the universe. So where some of the leading cosmologists are going now is they're saying, well, okay, there's something outside the universe, all right, but it's not God, it's just other universes.
Mm-hmm.
And so they call this the multiverse.
Mm-hmm.
It literally came out of comic books.
Oh, wow.
Flash
the leading
Gordon.
cosmologists, they all point to this one guy, Bernard Carr, who said, if you don't want God, you'd better have a multiverse. And so almost all of them are jumping on the bandwagon to go with the multiverse, even though they all admit there's no evidence for the multiverse. In fact, there never will be evidence. It's a totally unobservable realm, which means it's not in the realm of science, because science is all about being able to make predictions. So based on their own definition of science, it's not science. It's a way to try to avoid the God problem from their perspective. So the truth still is the evidence indicates there's got to be something outside of the universe. How do you know what's outside of the universe? Well, you got to follow the evidence. And we have positive evidence that indicates that it's got to be the God of the Bible, because we have a book that has characteristics that are divine. They're characteristics that humans could not have produced.
Mm-hmm.
That's above the abilities of humans, and which, of course, we're talking about the Bible. In fact, I remember making that point at one of my seminars. There was a biology professor that from Arkansas Tech University that came up to me and was quibbling with me over this issue. Okay, let's say, thermodynamics, okay, there is something outside of the universe. Let's say there's a God outside of the universe. How do you know which God it is? Because thermodynamics doesn't tell you which God it is. How do you know it's the God of the Bible and not Allah or Buddha or the Wiccan religion that's true or whatever? And so I told him, well, we have proof for specifically the God of the Bible, because the Bible has supernatural characteristics that humans could not have produced. And he sat there and looked at me stunned. He had never heard of that. He had never heard about these characteristics. And he actually wanted to hear more. And so I pointed him in the direction of our book on that subject that we have at AP. And one of the elders jumped up and bought it for him. And he took that book and went off. I don't know what he did with it, but hopefully he studied it and came to the truth. I never did hear what he did. But bottom line is we know which God exists because the evidence demands that it's the God of the Bible.
Exactly.